Welcome to Activate Your Introvert, the weekly radio show to uncover and unlock the entrepreneurial skills in your business. In this week's show, Introvert Myth of the Week. Introverts don't like to go out in public. Tip of the week is all around ideas for virtual team events that work for introverts and extroverts, and why virtual team events still have a place. And a discussion with Melanie Koshot. Melanie is a coach who specialises in Imposter Syndrome and confidence, two topics that keep coming back in your questions. Just before speaking to Melanie, I've been asked a lot about team building recently, as more people are realising the importance of getting teams to work together more effectively and removing the fears of individuals in these changing times. I hope, of course, that we can all do it face to face soon, although there's a good case for starting with remote team building, and perhaps there always will be as we move towards hybrid working. That's one reason why a group of experts are running a summit in April called Performance Through People. 12 speakers across 5 days helping you change the way you get more from your teams. Get more details at the link that's on the sleeve notes. But back to your team event. Before you even think about running it, what's your purpose? Just having fun isn't a good enough reason, and often leads to more cynicism in the already overworked team. It's important you link work and non-work related activities. In a way, it's the stories the team tell in future months that you're looking to influence. A successful event needs to be tailored to your team, or perhaps even better, series of mini events. Coming up with fun events you can run online is one thing. Influencing team effectiveness is another. However, two good examples could be partner discussions. Split the group into pairs in breakout rooms. They interview each other around planned themes, hobbies, where they live, etc. Bring the group back together and share 3 key learning points. 2 truths and a lie. Everybody creates a lie about themselves, and 2 things that nobody else knows. Each person then gets 1 minute on screen to explain all 3. The rest of the team vote on which was the lie. The winner is the person who created the most believable lie. But key to success is engaging everybody. Introverts often get quietly forgotten. Get them to manage sections of the session. Most important, of course, link real life and fun, where fun includes getting to know you type of activities. Examining work issues, however, still very, very important. What are the issues individuals foresee or worry about? What's working well and not so well for individuals? Collecting these 2 answers in a virtual event can be more effective than asking people to call out the issues when face to face. Anonymous polls or word clouds using things like Mentimeter or Jamboard can allow you to understand team views and allow the team to see the team views, and then you can jointly work on them. If you want to talk more about bringing your team together, I'd love to chat more. Do let me know what tip you'd like to help you activate the entrepreneurial skills in your business, or what introvert myth you'd like exposed. Drop me an email, give me a call, or add it as a comment to your review on the iTunes store. I would love to hear from you. But now, it's time to talk to Melanie. Welcome, Melanie.
Hi, John. Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for joining us. Just before we get into a discussion about imposter syndrome, are you an introvert or an extrovert?
I like to describe myself as a sociable introvert. I certainly feel that I have tendencies on both sides, and I have an appreciation of what I believe to be an introvert, as well as enjoying spending time with people and getting energy from them. But I really do enjoy time alone, just kind of decompressing, doing my own thing and being quite quiet.
Imposter syndrome, what is it?
It's where we believe that we might get found out, we might get discovered, that we really can't do our jobs, or that we are a fraud in some respect. It can come in different forms, but it's often the inner critic, our inner voice, which is telling us that we are a fraud, that we might get found out, that we're not good enough, that we may have just been lucky. And the interesting thing is that this is despite evidence and proof to the contrary. So actually, you might have just won an award or been promoted or received some great feedback, yet there is something in us that's kind of denying that, or not recognizing that we are better than we think we are.
That sounds a bit crazy, really, if I've just won an award and yet still don't believe it. What problems does that give people then?
At the most basic level, it can hold us back, prevent us from going for opportunities that we know deep down we're capable of, and probably everybody around us knows that we're capable as well. It can hold us back in the way that it can make us inefficient. Either we are undecisive about whether we are even going to move towards something or make a decision to do something or not. But it could also hold us back in the way that we might procrastinate, and we might be putting something off and not doing what we know we're capable of. So that is in the, I guess, the least serious cases. In the more serious cases, it can actually be quite debilitating. It can affect our mental health and cause problems in terms of burning us out or getting us so anxious and stressed that we make ourselves ill.
What causes it then? What makes us suddenly believe that we're not, or we're fraudulent?
I don't think anything suddenly causes it, but typically we all have, I guess, voices in our heads, or maybe this is just me and the other people I speak to, but a lot of us have this inner critic in our head. It could be when we find ourselves in a situation that is less familiar. It could be when we are comparing ourselves to other people. It could be when we are trying something new. Or it could be if we've, I guess, been catapulted into some kind of new situation, which could be, promoted into a new role or winning that award or something like that.
Interesting thought. While you're talking about that, I was thinking back to the introvert thing, and perhaps introverts tend to be more reflective. Do you think introverts suffer imposter syndrome more than extroverts, or does it make no difference?
That's interesting. I've not particularly looked at it from that perspective before. However, sometimes we feel that, if we see somebody that's acting in a very confident manner or something, that, oh, well, they couldn't possibly be feeling imposter syndrome, but often that's a cover up anyway. So do more introverts experience imposter syndrome? I would think that it probably affects everybody in a similar way. I guess what could be different is the way that you would deal with it between an introvert and an extrovert. And again, that's not something I've consciously thought about before, but I offer lots of different solutions to my clients and workshop attendees. And there are probably some methods that lend themselves more to introverts versus extroverts.
Okay, let's perhaps pick up on a couple of those then. How would you get rid of it? Maybe we might split that in two, into get rid of it as an introvert and as an extrovert.
Well, I think in terms of would we want to get rid of imposter syndrome, well, it's probably something that's keeping us safe. And also, if we think about, well, what's the opposite of imposter syndrome? I guess at the far end of the scale, you probably have somebody like the outgoing US president who
I don't know who you mean.
who may just not see that at all and think that he's above everything and whatever. So, I mean, personally, I would rather be on the imposter syndrome side of the scale than the narcissistic side, or the, overconfident, or however you want to say it. So actually, I think sometimes, yes, there's also that internal check. Well, that, are you sure you're up to this? Or what's, should you be putting yourself forward for this? So I think it is quite useful. However, we don't want to be listening to this voice all of the time. How to quieten that imposter syndrome. One of my favorites is around naming the imposter. So my imposter is actually called Izzy. She's a backseat driver. And actually, she might be giving it some lip, making me feel a bit like an imposter in certain situations. And it's almost like, I've got it, Izzy. I'm driving. I'm in control of my car. I'm navigating. I've got it. And so it's finding a way that you can talk to your imposter in a way that acknowledges that they're there, but yet keeps them quiet.
Oh, I like that.
And I think
quieten the imposter.
Quietening the imposter syndrome. It's like, if you imagine one of those old stereos that we used to have back in the 80s and the 90s,
not that old, Melanie.
Not that. We've still got one downstairs. They could be about turning that dial down. So whether that's a turning dial or a kind of a sliding scale, but it just kind of quietening it. You don't want to silence it, because I don't think that's useful. I think it's useful to hear that critic, because it does put you in check. I actually think that is a useful thing, whether you're an introvert or an extrovert. But in terms of maybe some of the more introvert related ideas for quietening it, one of the things that I work with a lot with my clients is getting them to acknowledge some of the great things that you've done, and whether this is from achievements that you've accomplished over a short period of time or in the longer term, and kind of getting yourself to recognize that there in writing, or keeping some kind of electronic folder or somewhere where you put all of these things together. It's finding a way to prove it to yourself and to acknowledge it.
So keep a visual almost representation of the evidence in front of you.
Yeah. So that's one idea. Again, that can be used for introverts or extroverts, but I think it's one that I tend to use more with the introverted clients. One which is more used for extroverts is talking to other people. Sometimes we feel that, maybe we can't, admit to other people that we feel like an imposter. Just by talking through it, by acknowledging it. Maybe you want to use the term imposter syndrome. Maybe you just want to say, I feel a bit uncomfortable or a bit out of my depth sometimes. But actually that process of kind of getting it off your own chest and out of your head and voicing it with somebody else. And that will give them the opportunity either to listen and be that sounding board for you, or maybe to give you some evidence to the contrary that actually, you are doing well, or you did that presentation well, or so whatever it is, reassure you.
Sometimes getting the evidence from somebody else makes it much more in your face, I guess, and believable.
Yeah.
Melanie, that is absolutely superb. We have completely run out of time because it was such a great discussion. So thank you for that. How can listeners get back in touch with you?
Via my website, that is bluediamondcoach.com.
Thank you so much for your time. It's been really, really interesting.
And now it's time for Introvert Myth of the Week. Those crazy stories that I hear and you hear, but some people actually believe. Introverts don't like to go out in public. My first reaction to that one was, how daft. That's the first polite reaction anyway. Agoraphobia is something else altogether. But I've heard this myth a lot lately, connected again to the hopefully soon ending of lockdown. My second reaction to introverts don't like to go out in public was utter nonsense. Introverts might not, and I don't really see evidence for this one either, might not like to go out in public for as long, but most important is the way they're interacting, how they take in the experience, and how they are more sensitive to dopamine, which is, by the way, a neurotransmitter we all have that makes us feel good. A survey showed that introverts are more sensitive to dopamine, which could explain why we feel de-energized or overstimulated more quickly. Which leads to the important point about recharging energy. Introverts recharge energy by sitting alone or quietly. So let's hope lockdown ends soon so we can all get back out in public more often. There's less homeschooling and we ditch the silly myths about introverts don't like being in public.
Thank you for listening to Activate Your Introvert, and I hope you've enjoyed this week's episode. I'd love to see your reviews on the iTunes store. Thank you once again, and catch up with you next week.